Hello and hello everybody, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. So I know you've probably seen it all by now. You've seen every YouTuber ever do the whole my 2018 year, but I don't care. This is about my 2018 year and my favourites of 2018. Now my last video was all the books I read with no descriptions, and if you want to see that, that will definitely be linked after the video and below and everything. But today we're going to go into the specifics of my favourites, and yeah, let's see how my year panned out. And because it was a good reading year, I had a lot of good books and less negatives, but that's good. I'm happy with that. I have a top 3 favourites and 5 honourable mentions, so that's 8 favourite books in total. Last year I did 5 favourite books, and this year I struggled so much. I couldn't get it down to 5. 3 and 5 make 8. It all makes sense. My 5 honourable mentions for the year of just spectacular books that couldn't not be in a favourites list. These are in no particular order, but first we have Shadow of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. Now I read this one right at the end of the year in December, but oh my god, I really love this book. If you watched my December wrap up, I really loved this book. It's a fantasy all about Japanese mythology. The 2 main characters are a girl, Kitsune, who has never left her temple and is now entrusted with the scroll to, you know, doom the earth, of course, and the assassin of the Shadow Clan, who must close off all his emotions lest he be controlled by his demon sword. These 2 unlikely pairings just join up on the epic quest for this scroll. There's secrets because he doesn't know she has the scroll. He's trying to find the scroll. There's all this danger and mystery and adventure. They come across so many mythological beasts and creatures and towns, challenges they must face along the way, and build this motley crew of just strange characters, and it was so interesting. No, I couldn't pronounce any of the names in my head. In fact, I probably couldn't tell you half of the cast's names. Couldn't remember what they are, just know what letter they begin with. But I loved the story. I thought it was written so well, and I just enjoyed reading it. Like, you know when you're reading a book and you're like, I am having fun, I am enjoying this, I am, wow, excitement. Just, I loved reading it, and if anything, mythology, fantasy, and anything kind of with a Japanesey fantasy kind of feel sounds interesting to you, I don't see how you could not like this book, so highly recommend this one. Another honourable mention I also read in the late of this year, and that is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. It seems like amazing fantasies happened at the end of this year. This one just, it blew me away. Like, it took me to a place I've never been, and it talked about the sirens and this brutal main character who was lethal. It had this atmosphere, this ominous factor about it that I really loved. I loved the characters. I just love how the story developed, and it wasn't cutesy. There was a lot of murder, a lot of death, secrets. Again, 2 characters who are so opposite and who don't know the other's secret. I guess we're sensing a theme. It totally brought me out the reading slump of October. It just brought me back, and again, while reading it, I just had that sensation of, oh my god, I love this. I loved every second, and I didn't want to finish it. So if you want something ominous, fantasy, a little bit different, something about the seas, something about murderous sirens and pirates and crews who really stick together, you know, that sense of camaraderie, this is a great book. And in September I read this lovely little baby, One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. Now, personally, as all these opinions of these books are, I loved this book. I didn't know what to expect from it while reading it. The Breakfast Club meets murder mystery. I wasn't a fan of The Breakfast Club, to be honest, the film. I'm not really a murder mystery thriller kind of person. I'm not selling this, am I? Essentially, 5 characters go into a detention and one of them dies, and the characters therefore after are then in this whole investigation because one of them has killed the other and we don't know who. I love the way it was done. It could have been done in so many ways. I loved personally the way it was weaved together. You have the point of view of all the characters who come out of detention, and each of them has their own unique character. Yes, they're a stereotype, they're the geek, the criminal, the jock, blah blah blah, but they're more than that. They were not 2-dimensional, which was a fit. They were very 3-dimensional characters, and they all had a voice, and I loved each of their heads. I liked some more than others, Bronwyn, but I enjoyed seeing all of their thought process and how these regular teenagers were during a real murder investigation. It used social media a lot and the media in general and how this has affected them, you know. Suddenly these kids have been known by nobody, are on TV in this murder mystery. People think they're killers and they're giving opinions on something that they weren't there for, they know nothing about these kids. That whole concept was really fun to explore, and I just loved all these characters. I love how the story weaved itself together to the end, and I did guess who it was right before, and I love that. I love it when you guess it, but not too early, because if it's too early it spoils it. If you guess it near the end, it's like some sense of satisfaction, but also a surprise, because you're like, am I right? Am I right? I'm right. And it was a good idea. I loved why. I loved the whole core of the idea, and I loved the murderer. I loved the whole thing. I thought it was just really well written. I was really invested in these characters and this investigation that had happened. You were rooting for them. And at some point in the story I was like, I don't want it to be any of them. I've come to know all of these characters. So it's slightly ominous because you know one of them's going to be the murderer. I heard some bad reviews about this book, but I do not care. I absolutely loved it, and again, as soon as I finished it, I was like, no, because I enjoyed it so much. I didn't want it to end, and when it did, I got really sad. I remember finishing this book and just sitting there on my sofa staring at the wall. My boyfriend was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I finished it. I shouldn't have been that sad, but really, that was a testament to how much I enjoyed the book, that when it was finished, I missed it. What more can you ask for from a book, you know? That's why it made it onto my favourites list. At some point during the mid-year, I read Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I loved this book. It was totally not what I expected. As I've said plenty of times before in videos, it was not the superhero cliche thing I thought it might be. It was so fantastical, full of mythology and fantasy, yet there was urban fantasy because it was set in modern day New York. The beginning, when it was set on her home turf, and it was so, this is a long time ago since I read it, but it was so mythological and fantastical, you know? It really seemed like a Greek myth. And then suddenly she's in New York with the modern day, and it's old versus new, and the whole thing I enjoyed it. It was so full of action, but so full of heart as well. And again, I just enjoyed reading it. All these books are so fantastical in structure, in concept, in plot, characters, in development, but the thing that puts them above everything else is my enjoyment of it, you know? Getting to the end and being sad that you finished it, reading it and thinking, wow, I love it. That feeling, that is why these books are on this list. So Wonder Woman, you made it. And my last honourable mention I read at the beginning of the year, and that was Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rush, or the whole Snow Like Ashes trilogy. This trilogy was so unexpected in how great it was. It started out rocky, I'm not gonna lie, because it's such an unusual world, and I was confused. Same with Wonder Woman, to be fair, now I think about it. I was confused at the beginning of Wonder Woman, but this, just the more I read, the more I understood the world, the more characters we met, the more places we travelled. It had so much to it, so much depth, so much action. There was fantasy, there was magic, there was war, there was just so much in here, and it was so carefully plotted and woven together. This whole fantasy world must have taken so long to map out. I loved the seasons and places and the kind of oppression of winter. I just thought it was such an imaginative concept and written so well. By the time I got to Frostlike Night, I was just sobbing for characters. The war, the action, how she had to go into that cave at the end, just the whole thing. It's been a year since I read these, and the details are very sketchy now. I can only remember bits and feelings and certain scenes and moments, but I know I loved these books, and it was a slow burner. It took a little bit to get into, but such a world cannot be. Of all the fantasy books I read, this trilogy although probably the least talked about, was my favourite. You made it, Snow Like Ashes, you made it. So that was what I like to call my honourable 5, and then for the top 3 books of the year. The first book of the top 3, again, none of these 3 have a 1, 2, 3 order, they're all just the top 3. I cannot pick a winner. Number 1 in the top 3 is Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Now, you've heard me talk about this book, you've heard me love this book. You've heard me compare it to the whimsy and magic of Harry Potter. You've heard me talk about the plot and the characters and just how much I love it. And is this a surprise? No, it is not. This includes Wondersmith too, just the series in general is magical. So well written, so full of heart. The feeling it gives you, and I love the mysteries of it. You never know quite what's going on with Nevermore. You never quite know what Jupiter's up to, what tricks he's got up his sleeve. You never know what the Wondersmith is doing. Ezra School, what are you at? So much fun, and it's so well written. I cannot pass this book. It is one of the best I've read this year. I've read it twice this year, so that says something. If I've read it twice in a year, how much I loved it, and I recommend this to anyone, young, old, new to reading, experienced reader. It's a great book, a great series. The next book that was just beyond amazing, again, I've mentioned it so many times, The Saviour's Champion by Jenna Moreci. It was so good. Now, Jenna has made waves and storms in the AuthorTube community. She has such a big fan base, and deservedly so. Her sales are skyrocketing. I'm just proud of her. You know she's done good, you know. She has done it with such conviction, and she could easily make money with quick writes. She could not put much time in them and they would sell. But she doesn't. You can tell how much care went into this book, how many months, how many years of just hard work and soul went into that book. And it's beautiful. The story, the characters, the writing, the plot, the mystery, the plot twist, the funny moments, the scary moments, it's all in there. Everything you could want in a book is in The Saviour's Champion, and I loved it. Adult fantasy, you do need to be okay with sex and swearing. It is just, it's a marvel for books and novels, and especially for indie, and you should read it. Plain and simple, you will not regret it. And the last book on this list, the top 3, we got Nevermore, we got The Saviour's Champion, and the biggest surprise of the year, Starfish by Kiwi Dawn Bowman. Who would have thought a contemporary? What a varied selection of books, eh? An adult fantasy, contemporary, and a middle grade. None of them technically dystopian, so there you go. This goes to show you that things can really surprise you, and that's why you should try different things and not just read the same book over and over again. Even though you should do that too, because rereading is great. This book was a total surprise. As you know, contemporary is not my genre. I love fantastical dilemmas, amazing morals and concepts, action and adventure, which isn't technically in a contemporary. But this book, I had a few contemporaries this year I liked, but this was as good as any fantasy I've read. Not in adventure, but in just how amazing it was, how it made me feel, and at the end of the day, that's what books are about. This book is about an artist, so that helped, who doesn't have the best home life, and she has to go out on her own and discover herself, her art, and what her life should really be. Now, that description I realise sounds like my own life, except the home life thing. No sob stories here. But this book was just so heartwarming, and it could have been really cheesy. It could have really rubbed me up the wrong way. The main character being super antisocial and having all these issues to deal with, it could have been so preachy, and it wasn't. It wasn't what I expected it to be. It was about this girl just facing her family, facing herself, and doing what she needed to do. It was about what art means, about what it really is. It was about being yourself, and I'm describing it really badly. I can't tell you why this book hit me as much as it did. Maybe because it's close to home, but I loved it. Just the story and the way it made me feel, and the lessons it tried to teach, and the things I brought from it were beautiful, and I suck at describing temporaries. But trust me on this one, it wouldn't be here. I mean, it's a contemporary and it was fantastic. It was so much better than most contemporaries, which are fluff, in my opinion. It had so much substance to it, so much emotion and reality, and I loved it. Plain and simple, I loved it, so it's in my top 3. That is 2018 in a nutshell. It was such a great year for books, and again, I just want to thank books for being there in my life when other things seemingly don't go to plan, when life turns you on your head and says, nope, that's not going to go how you want it to, that's not going to go to plan. Here's a nice little roadblock to completely halt you. Books have just been there for me, and why am I getting emotional? Books are just a constant. They are an escape, and they remind you about I'm actually getting emotional, this is weird. They remind you about the larger scale of life, and you know, I find that when you're in a fantasy, dystopian or something like that, I'm facing someone else's problems, not mine. It is a true form of escape, but it reminds me how they can deal with such amazing things. I can deal with what I have, you know? My life is not the worst. That doesn't help when I'm sad. It doesn't make me feel any better, but books, just words, the way they make you feel, they make you live, they teach you, they are, a reader lives 1,000 lives, you know? And I'm truly thankful for books and all they gave me in 2018, because they truly were the best part of my year, and I read so many good ones, so many new ones, unexpected ones, and I've got so many books now in my collection. 2018 was the year my library grew. This year of reading was truly great, and if nothing else, that was there for me. Wow, that got really emotional and deep, and you have no idea about the personal side of my life, which was crap. Although I've said it a lot, so sorry about that. I hope you enjoyed my 2018 wrap up. I hope you read a bunch of wonderful books, and I hope you reach everything you want to reach in 2019. Don't stress yourself with reading goals. It's fun to have, but don't make it a chore, and just live your best life. See you for the rest of this new year. I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.